Thank you, everybody, for joining us in July here for our Forest Health Workshop webinar. For today, we're going to discuss ornamental trees, the best options for our region, in our towns, in our yards. What trees are best suited for the Dakotas and the Northern Great Plains here. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be trimmed down and put onto our YouTube playlist, where you can find about 30 or 35 of our past workshops up there. I'll be sure to put a link to that video playlist in the chat box. For those of you joining in hopes to get some ISA certified credits or some SAF certified forester CEUs, you came to the right place. Please, in the chat box, put your your name, your email address, and your credential number. So three things there: your name, your email address, and your credential number to receive those CEUs. We'll have to report those on the back end. So make sure you add that in the chat before this live workshop is over. Watching the recorded videos are great for you to learn, but you will not receive any CEUs for past workshops. Thank you to all Master Gardeners that are joining us as well. This can be used in your self-reporting for your required hours that you need as well. And with that, Dr. Ball, I will hand it over to you.
All right. Well, thanks, Tony. As always, great introduction. Today I thought we'd just have some fun. It's the middle of the summer. It was hot, cool today, at least in Brookings, but it sounds like it's gonna be hot again. And I don't expect you to be out tree planting, but you might have done it this spring, you might be doing it this fall, but it's a good time to start thinking about what to plant. So I'm talking about really ornamental trees in this case. So it does mean everything I'm covering is a shade tree. Some of these you're going to be almost as tall as the tree. And not all these can grow everywhere in the state. And some of these may be more limited to towns, even small towns, than on the open prairie. So there's some trees that, you plant them out where they're fully exposed. They don't do very well, but you put them in a town of 100 and they'll make it. So let's get it rolling. And obviously, reminder, emerald ash borer has changed all our thoughts on trees. Get out there, get a diversity. And that's kind of a point of today is what can we plant that'll add to the diversity of our landscapes? So I got to start with this. Hardiness zones kind of play a big role in that. And if you look, here's the current. And I'm going to use Huron today as kind of our generic South Dakota town. Admittedly, it doesn't fit all aspects of it, but it'll help us out today. But if you take a look, and by the way, if you look at past maps, that zone 5A has been moving up. If you look at the maps 40 years ago, we were zone 4. But we're getting a little warmer in the south end of the state and not quite as cool at the north end of our state. You'll notice up on the Coteau and around the Aberdeen area, it still gets fairly cold. And I think Britain still holds the cool spot for the state outside of the Black Hills, of course. And you can also see when you get out to the Black Hills, those communities that kind of on the edge of the hills, those are actually getting pushed to a 5B. So yeah, it's a little warmer, and that kind of influences what we're going to be talking about today. Now, Huron is 4B, but I want you to look at this. I kind of did a map, if you will, an outline of all our temperatures for Huron, South Dakota for the past 30 years. And if you look way back, and if I'd gone even further back, it was a definite zone 4A for Huron. As I say, much of the state north of I-90 was 4A and everything below was 4B. Well, then we started getting warmer winters and we're 4B. And believe it or not, we even get a couple of years that technically we're a zone 5 or even a 6. But what I want you to notice is how often Huron in the last 15 years or so is bouncing between 4B and 5A. Now, 5A one year and 4B the next means you better be planning on 4B because that cold winter will take everything out. but I'm noticing this in a number of our locations, many of our locations, is that we are creeping up to the really more of the five A's, and we're even getting five B's. Northern's going to take a while, but they've moved from 4A to 4B. So our warmer winters, and we look at the minimum temperatures, not the average, but the minimum, our minimum. And if you look at the line there, minus 33, minus 22, minus 25 in the beginning. And yeah, then we did have some minus 31s later on. But our winters are not quite as cold as our grandparents told us they were. So that influences what we can grow. And then the other thing we need to think about is what potential pests could come in, or are they adapted to our climate? And so here's a really nice little tree for Minnesota, South Dakota, not Minnesota. Minnesota's phasing out the use of non-native alders. So black alder, what we call European alder, glutinosa, it's fading away. This will fade away as well. They just want to make sure they don't have any hybridizing with their native alders, which are numerous that occur in all the sloughs and that. So, South Dakota, yep, you can still plant this, and they still have it in Minnesota, but they are phasing these out. Now, this is a North Dakota State University introduction, and it is from what we often call Manchuria, northeastern China, right sandwiched between Korea and Mongolia. And if you find a tree native there, it's going to work out really well here. I've been there many times, and there's areas that look like western Minnesota into South Dakota, and I can even show you some areas that look like the Black Hills. So climatically, it's very similar to this. Now, this tree doesn't have any fall color, but it does have a gorgeous form to it. And it has these cone-like fruits, this little strobis that hang all winter. Now, before I get any further, when I circle that spot today, I want you to take a look. Harbin, which is up in northeastern China, and that kind of their cold spot. I want you to take a look. In July, the mean daily max is pretty darn close between Huron and Harbin, right? The daily mean minimum in January is pretty close, minus 14 to minus 8. Precip is close, and latitude is close. Now you might say, okay, I get okay, our summer highs are about the same, our winter lows are about the same, our precip is about the same. And by the way, the wettest months there are May and June, very similar to what we see here. So it's lining up pretty well. And you might say, but what's so important about the latitude? Latitude determines day lengths. And trees use day lengths to tell them to do something or stop doing something. Typically, they use the shorter days in the fall to tell them when to shut down, get ready for winter. So trees that are native to this area of China, they're at home here. We have the same precept. We have our hot summers. We have our cold winters. And you shut down at about the same time. So it's a good place to look for plants. And there's a line of our Manchurian, our what is our prairie horizon alders. By the way, this is an alder that'll take drier sites as well. And that so if you're looking for a small tree, not a large tree, a small tree, but rather ornamental, this is a good one. Interesting leaves, but I will admit, no fall color. Bark is kind of beech-like. It's kind of a nice addition out there, and we can grow it essentially throughout the entire state. Add a little water if you're over by Perkins, but Lemon, South Dakota. But otherwise, you'll be fine. Now, autumn blazed maple. Some of you might say, you're putting this one on the list? No, not to plant. Why? We've overdone the maples. And I'm concerned that what little insect may arrive from China, yet unknown, because they have the most species of maples, and they have a lot of them, that could end up finding a home here in South Dakota. Plus, this tree, I'll admit, in the fall, you cannot beat the fall color. But I took a picture of one yesterday. There's a summer color. Isn't that gorgeous? No. they become chlorotic on high pH sites because of the lack of available iron and manganese. And so right now I'm watching a lot of color changes on our Freeman maples, autumn blaze being one of them. Then the fall can be a brilliant red. Sometimes spends the summer as an equally brilliant yellowish green. And that's not all that attractive. The other problem we have with the Freeman maples, which autumn blaze is probably our best known one, is sun scald. They split on the southwest side of the tree. The reason for that is if that thin bark is exposed to the winter sun, so it warms it up during the daytime and the temperatures drop, that change in temperature ripples out to a crack in the tree. And so because of the cracking, the chlorosis, and the fact that we've overplanted them, Freeman maples are not on my to plant list. But if someone's sitting out there and say, but John, I really want one of those trees. Well, okay. If you got to plant one of them, try these two. The first one here has got a better branching structure. And so it's not going to split apart as easily in storms. And that's one of our other problems with our Freeman maples. They split very easily unless they've been properly trained. And the Santa Glen has been used in the state, and that's a picture of one of the leaves in the state for quite a long time. It's less susceptible to that frost cracking. It seems to be a little hardier. So if you're having trouble growing one and you really want to grow one, Sienna Glen would probably be your best bet. But let's look at some other maples and tell you what, let's look at maples from China. Little insect comes over here, I'm not worried because these are native there. And interesting enough, we have not seen any of our native borers for maples attack these trees. So they look like good options. So I'm not saying no completely to maples, but let's be a little bit more selective. Now, this one actually is not from China. It's actually from Hokkaido, the northern island of Japan, up at the higher elevations than that. It's a 4B. It's not a 4A. I probably wouldn't plant it there, but I'll bet you a dime there's a couple growing in Huron, excuse me, in Aberdeen. I love the form, and you know what? You don't really need to prune them. They develop such a nice shape on their own. Pumpkin yellow fall color. Now, our only problem is they're sometimes grafted on hedge maple, which is from Europe, and that tree is not as hardy. So if we have an open winter, we can actually get the root collar killed on these trees, and then obviously the top dies. Um, does have a milky sap, very similar to Norway maples. To me, this looks like a much nicer, more refined Norway maple. They're used throughout the state. Here's a picture of one being used as a street tree in Rapid City. You see them in Pier. They do well in gravel. They do well next to roads. They're nice little trees, and you'll rarely see any damage to the leaves whatsoever. And I love the fall color. So if you're looking for a small maple, again, not a shade tree maple, but a small maple, 25, 30 feet, this would be a good possibility. Now, what about box elder? You know what? Believe it or not, that's getting used more as a tree. Unfortunately, many of them are not hardy to South Dakota. I know that sounds crazy, but the cultivars, Kelly's Gold here, it's actually a zone 5A. Now, if you're in Rapid City, yeah, you can plant it. You're down in Yankton, yeah, you can plant it. You're up in Aberdeen, it isn't going to live. Because if you look at the range of box elder, there are some box elders, many box elders, that are native to Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, and the genetics for those trees do not give them the hardiness that the northern seed sources provide. So you really got to look at the zone as to what they're rated to. Don't just assume, oh, it's a box elder, you can grow it anywhere. No. Some of the prettiest ones, nah, they're not going to survive in South Dakota. But the gold one's kind of a nice one, but not here. Now, Sensation box elders caught on, and we call it Sensation Maple. It does have a reddish fall color. It's a zone 4B. You can grow it, but honestly, I still prefer it south of I-90. And the reason for that, this is actually from a tree out in Idaho. So It's not quite hardy in many of our states, and it grows too late into the year. Here's one twig from McCory Gardens that I cut off last first week of December. We had that little worm spell, and this one just would not shut down. So you end up with a lot of tip dieback on them in the northern part of our state, despite the fact they're box elders. Now, if you're looking for an interesting fall color, there's another maple, and I kind of like the color to it. Three-flowered maple, and notice it's from the same area as the Prairie Horizon alder. Now, this one, you can buy it. The big wholesalers carry it. Maybe your local garden center doesn't. It's kind of an upright tree, 20 to 30 feet. Like I said, this is not a major shade tree. Cold hardy to about, 4B. And I've even seen it growing up in Bismarck, North Dakota. But again, that's a little heat island in itself. But nice fall color to it and really attractive bark. So I kind of like these trees. I planted these three over by our library about 20 some years ago, and they've really turned out to be nice trees. But look at that bark. Isn't that pretty? I think this tree is at its prettiest in middle of winter when you've got all this exfoliating bark visible. And buy it as a multiple stem tree, and it really looks nice. We like Japanese maples. We'd all like them. Can't grow them here. By the way, take a look at that nice hydrangea in front. We can't grow them like that either. I didn't take this picture here. I took this picture out in Pennsylvania. And yeah, there they do well. And yes, you can grow Japanese maples here. That's one in Morris on campus. And you're wondering, how do they grow that? It's in a pot. They put it in a greenhouse in the winter, but a cool house, so it still can go dormant. Now, I know people, even in Brookings, we got a few people that manage to get them to go, but not very many. But if you like that Japanese maple, look at this one. This is done at the Wagner Arboretum down in Sioux Falls. And this is Pseudosibuldianum, the Korean maple, and it looks just as pretty. So if you want a small little maple tree that is that kind of Japanese maple appearance, with the very divided leaves to it and that, consider the Korean maple. And they are very hardy. They're actually from the same area as the other trees that I mentioned, so they're actually more cold hardy than people realize. Now, if you really want to try one that's fun, and again, it's from that region, but it's more of a 4B. Why? It breaks bud too early sometimes, and frost will get it. But winter hardiness seems to be okay. The Arctic jade. The reason for the Arctic jade is it has very much a mottled red and orange fall color. So if you're looking for a small tree, about 15 feet, somewhat upright, that is going to have a very interesting fall color, definitely looks oriental in your yard with a very fine leaves to it. Arctic jade is a good choice, and they have them. I was down at Oak Ridge Nursery this last Friday, I think it was, on my way to look at EAP over at Big Sioux. And yep, they had them there. So it's a tree you can find here. But take a look at its leaves too. Again, that fine divided leaf. All right, done with the maples. Buckeyes. Now, this is the go-to Buckeye. Autumn Splendor. It's from University of Minnesota for all you Gopher fans and that. But I'll tell you, they came up with just a great tree. Now, South Dakota developed a homestead, but it's difficult to propagate, so it really hasn't caught on with the nurseries. But they grow this one. Prairie Torches from North Dakota. That doesn't seem to be quite as available either. So if you find the Autumn Splendor, you're fine with that. It can have a red fall color, some maroon. Do not count on it. Many years the leaves will turn kind of a reddish green, and that's about as good as it gets. Some a little bit brighter red, but not the reds that we get on maples. Uh, Cold hardy. It is drought sensitive, though, I will say that. Don't plant it out on a hot, dry site. But the other advantage, doesn't produce many buckeyes. Squirrels would hate you for this plant. So there's one here on campus here, as you can see. It grows extremely well. Nice little tree. You love the flowers to them that come out in late May, early June, mostly June. And that, but you come back and try to find buckeyes, you might find maybe five per plant, and that's it. Because we don't like the buckeyes. If you plant the Ohio buckeye, you get whatever the squirrel gave you. And yeah, you're going to find a tree that's going to produce buckeyes like crazy. So the hybrids, the Prairie Torch, the Homestead, the Autumn Splendor, and there's a couple of others coming on the market too. Those one of the things they're known for is minimal fruit production. That's a good one. But I had to show you this one too. I took this picture down a week ago at the Wagner Arboretum down there in Sioux Falls. Beautiful arboretum if you haven't had a chance to get down and take a look at it. But what do you think of this one? That's bottle brush buckeye. They grow them all the way up to the Twin Cities. It's a shrub. It's a 4B5A. So, it's going to be from Sioux Falls, let's say I-90 across might be a good way to describe it. And that, but look at the flowers to it. They kind of come out with this nice little fringe to them. So if you want a buckeye shrub, you can see why it gets the name bottle brush buckeye, because that flower certainly doesn't look like what we typically see on buckeyes. And no, you're not going to really get any nuts from this either. But it makes a nice small mounded shrub. I'll back up here so you can see it. And it's definitely unique in the landscape. You plant this somewhere in your yard, people are going to wonder and ask, what is that plant? Now, birch, I've looked at a lot of birch lately, and a couple things I want you to note. Anytime you see the word Renaissance, that's probably going to be a good birch to plant. It's kind of a series. Renaissance Reflection, Renaissance Oasis in that. But these are great trees. We planted one on our campus, planted several on our campus. Never had any problem with it. No bronze birch borer yet. Don't expect to see it until they get much older and begin to die. Uh, Good yellow fall color, drought tolerant, high tolerance to emerald ash borer. They're not affected by the insect unless they're already declining. And that's a tree. When we planted it, that's a tree now. It's just a gorgeous tree. If you say I want a birch in my yard, Renaissance, Oasis, Reflection, either of those are going to be great choices. As I say, they're more drought tolerant, so they're not stressed as much, and they're just beautiful trees with just brilliant yellow fall color. Foliage color's kind of nice too, but you'll all like the bark as well. This is not one of them, by the way. But I put this picture in because this is a paper birch, which is now old and on a harsh site, but they do take care of it. I'm going to say that. But yeah, now it's being attacked by the bronze birch borer, which is very close related to the emerald ash borer with two major differences. Bronze birch borer attacks birch, of course. Emerald ash borer attacks ash. But bronze birch borer is native to North America. So it only attacks our native birch when there's old, stressed, and declining. But it'll flat out kill any Asian or European birch, much as emerald ash borer only attacks stressed ash in Asia, but will kill all our North American ash here. So another North American ash is the white spire. Now, I frankly don't care for it. It doesn't have quite the pretty bark. It also can become chlorotic on alkaline soils. But tolerance to emerald ash borer again. But to me, it doesn't look as pretty. Leaves turn a little yellow. The bark is chalky rather than that white peeling bark. But it's another one that you could plant and not really have to worry about bronze birch borer. But again, paper birch is one of my favorite birch for planting in South Dakota. I might use the gray birch if I was going west and it was a hotter, drier area. But otherwise, paper does fine. But stay away from the Asian birch. Yeah, this is native to Asia. Climatically, it's perfect for us. The problem is there is no bronze birch borer over there. In fact, the Chinese do not want to see it get there. But when you plant these trees in the US, they're hit. I think I can keep them on campus about 5 years. Now, funny, when a lot of these Asian birch came out, they said, well, they're going to be borer resistant. There's no reason for them to be borer resistant. And frankly, they're not. So on these, there is no high tolerance to bronze birch borer. These will easily be attacked after in the ground 5 or 10 years. And that's the calls I get because they're pretty trees. I won't deny that. But you get out there and people ask, well, why are they dying? You can feel the bumps on it and of the galleries for the bronze birch borer and the trees going. Now, Parkland pillar, by the way, I love that tree, but it does not tolerate emerald ash borer. Okay. It also suffers from winter injury, winter desiccation injury. This is one out at McCory Gardens. You can see the top has died back. I planted one in my yard for fun because I think they're pretty. I mean, they are literally a column. And I kept it for 10 years, just watered it and it looked nice. But between the winter desiccation injury, because it doesn't like our dry winters, and the fact that bronze birch borer prefers it, means that it's probably not a good choice for it unless you want to start going into treatments, every year, every other year. But again, it is a pretty tree. I love the appearance. I love the appearance of all these birch. I just have some concerns about bronze birch borer and what we've seen in South Dakota. Royal frost, the same problem. Again, in all our birch plantings that we've done on campus, as an example, um, any that are Asian or European, we're not able to keep alive without treatments. And we had one of these planted right near our Europeans. Excuse me, our paper. And this is the same one here. We can get it about maybe 10 years. No, I have seen some over in Minnesota, 25 years old and still doing fine. So I don't want to make it sound like there is a definite shelf life, but I am telling you about susceptibility to these insects. So be cautious with it. But I love the color. River birch, I like the tree. Northern Tribute was one that was released from North Dakota. I've not been able to find that much. And so I left that name off here just so you don't say, well, I can't find it. But it looks like a nice one. It's from a tree in Dickinson, if I remember correctly. Seems to be more alkaline tolerant than the typical river birch. And river birch do not get bronze birch borer. But the problem we have with all the river birches that we tend to plant in Sioux Falls, they're all yellow right now because of chlorosis. They will not take alkaline soils at all. Northern Tribute, if you can find it, I would certainly try it. Or you know what? The other thing is you ask for it. Nurseries don't tend to carry things or may not tend to carry things unless they're asked about. But yeah, there's a typical river birch here in Brookings, chlorotic by midsummer. Yellowwood. We've had very good success in Brookings with yellowwood. No dieback to them whatsoever. It's a 4B tree. This picture's not taken from here, by the way. I took that in Toledo, Ohio. But we have some that are getting up to this size. We plant them. There's some huge ones in Sioux Falls, but that is a heat island. You can find them out in the Black Hills as well. I doubt if there's one in Aberdeen, but there possibly could be. This tree's alkaline tolerant, and I love the fragrant chains that hang down from it. So if you're looking for it, blooms in late May. And by the way, it's one of the last to leaf out. So it suddenly leaves out and blooms. When I sold these at the garden center back when I worked in Michigan, you'd have to tell people, don't take them up and return them in the spring because they haven't leafed out yet. They're one of the last. But yellowwood, I think we can use that and with some dependability, at least in southeastern South Dakota. And as far north as Brookings, as I say, they have performed extremely well over the years for us. And fall color, I wouldn't really count on much, but it does get a color to it. And we've got a line of them out at Macquarie Gardens that have been there quite a long time. So worth a try if you haven't. Coffee trees. Most of you know those are one of my favorites. I love coffee trees. They're getting planted a lot. Uh, I love all the names for the podless ones, espresso, decaf. And True North isn't one, but a lot of them have that name, and they do well through the state here. I like the flowers. They are dioecious. There's what we call male plants that just produce staminate flowers, and there's plants that just produce pistillate flowers to it. And so that's why you can have podless cultivars because they're taken from trees that only are clones from trees that only produce staminate flowers. And again, these are probably two of the best known. Two that we've used a lot of in South Dakota. Stately Manor was another one, but True North has become very popular. But here's an espresso on campus, and you can see all the pods on it. And it was like, what the heck happened? And, I talked with the growers and I talked with folks over at University of Minnesota too for True North and that. And here's the problem. The graft can fail. You see this graft? You see that little crook there? That graft took. So in other words, the cultivar they grafted on succeeded. And here you can see it as well. There's the sign, the cultivar that they used on a seedling rootstock. Rootstock can be staminate or pistillate. This one was one that came up. We could not find any crook to it whatsoever. What it appears to be is that the graft failed and it sprouted from the rootstock and just entered the production system. Is it a major problem? No. It's just enough to be annoying that you buy a cultivar that's seedless, podless, and it's not. So the thing I always recommend is if you're going out to buy one, that's what it should look like in the pot that you're buying it from. Right near the base, you're going to see that little crook where you can see that little where they cut the top off after it was budded, and uh, then you're assured that you're going to get a podless tree. Northern Acclaim, and I know people keep hearing this from me. I love that tree. It has just done amazingly well. There is a prairie silk from Manitoba. I mentioned it, but it's difficult to find. Street Keeper's another one that's a nice tree, but the availability doesn't seem to be as good. But Northern Acclaim, you can find it, and it's a great tree to plant if you're looking for honey locust, rather than the old standbys, the Imperials, the Shade Masters, and that. This is a great tree. It's hardy. It's going to produce a couple of pods now and then. That will just happen, almost any honey locust, but it's not going to produce an abundance of them. And it may have a fall color to it, but I like the fine foliage, which we get on all honey locusts. You can grow a good lawn underneath it. You're not going to see this many pods on it. And you're certainly not going to see this, which is my neighbor's tree, which is one of the old varieties. But, I had someone call me up one time and said, well, there's a pod on my Northern Acclaim. Okay, one pod is not a problem. You're not going to get something like this. But yeah, they're pretty trees, great forms, have performed incredibly well for us. Not so with some of the others. Some of the others, we end up with nectary canker in them. And nectary canker is a problem with that is that if it doesn't harden off enough, the canker disease starts. And so I can remember years where we saw some of the older cultivars are still out there for sale, and they're good trees. But nevertheless, I find nectary canker more often, not always, more often in the old Imperials and the sunbursts, which I know people like the color too. But you'll get these where you'll get this canker disease forming around any of the branch unions on some of those cultivars. And again, one of the small ones here. Drought plays a role in it as well. And so we kind of lose them. Tulip tree. Now that's one of my fun trees I'm mentioning. They're being used as a street tree in Brookings, South Dakota. I can see them along the streets down in Flandreau, certainly in Sioux Falls. We've got some monsters, 50 feet, I'd call it. And they seem to come back year after year after year. Maybe we're going to have to get one of those 4A test winners, but we haven't seen in a while. But right now, they just grow and grow. But again, 4B, and I would certainly, Brookings, they're not planting a lot of them, but they are using them as street trees, and you just love the flowers to them. So it's a tree that I think certainly Mitchell has some nice ones. You get along I-90, I think I would consider this as a street tree. And that not a lot of them, but it adds to the diversity. And it's an unusual tree. This one. Now, summertime is one of the, I think it was University of Minnesota introduction. And there's a number of others out there. This is one on campus. You'll notice I've used a lot of campus pictures here. Hardy as heck. And the other thing I like about it is when it blooms. It's blooming right now in Brookings. And we don't have a lot of trees that flower in the summertime. It's a nice small tree. It has performed extremely well. It is alkaline tolerant. So it's one of these we plant and kind of walk away from it. In the spring, it has a little bit of silver as it leaves out. It does produce a pod. It is a legume, but it's not big and it's certainly not objectionable. But I love the flowers to it. They smell like fresh cut alfalfa. Well, it's a legume, so why not? Now I had to show you this one. That's an Osage orange on the campus of South Dakota State University. Now, it's only made it through one or two winters. So we're not suggesting you plant it, but I'm amazed at what we're pushing now in Brookings, South Dakota. By pushing that, we're actually getting trees to grow. We got a Katsura tree. They have a Katsura tree at North Dakota State University campus. They're small. They're tall shrubs rather than tall trees, but we're actually growing these. And you might say, why would you want to? Well, they're kind of a novelty. We haven't got the fruit on them yet. I didn't take that picture of the fruit on ours. And I'm not saying they're going to make it. Maybe we get 10 years of good weather and suddenly we get that really cold, the test winter, as we call it. And they go. But to me, the fun of ornamental trees is to do some trials. Try one, not in a critical spot, but try one. Hop hornbeam is becoming more popular now, even for windbreaks. It doesn't have a real fall color, more of a rusty yellow. And that's certainly hardy. It's native to eastern South Dakota, and it's native to western South Dakota. You'll find it as a small tree beneath all the pines. You'll find it up in Seachy Hollow there. It is considered drought tolerant, and it seems to handle droughts fairly well, but I wouldn't plant it on an excessively dry site, but we do use it on campus quite a bit. It's just kind of a nice small tree, a little different. I like that diversity for a lot of reasons, and it does have that interesting fruit on it, which to me adds to the ornamental value. Now, uh, sycamores. This one, good luck. We've tried the exclamation one several times, but it's not a American buttonwood or sycamore as we call them. This is one of the quote London planes that they had, and we can't keep them alive. They are dieback shrubs. Then this is not one. This is Nebraska. But if you get one, just a plain old sycamore, they grow. We've got them. I took that picture one in winter, South Dakota. We've got some nice ones in my area. We've got a huge one in Millbank. Now, having said that, 20 years ago, we probably lost maybe 2/3 of all the sycamores in Brookings. We had that test winter. And it didn't matter whether they were little or big, we lost them, almost all of them. So you got to get down to Sioux Falls to be reliable, but it does add to it. Oaks, northern red oak, we can grow it. You just have to have the right soil. It not alkaline tolerant. You get pHs 5 or 6, they're going to yellow on you fairly easy. And that, but pretty trees and the fall color can be spectacular. The Majestic Skies. Now you can buy that one. I believe that's a Manitoba introduction originally, but this is a northern pin oak. Okay, and I still think watch your pH, but we've seen it at 7, 3, and 4, and it seems to be doing okay. I'm not going to say every one of them, but it seems to be a pretty nice tree. It's more alkaline tolerant than others of the red oak group. Leaves emerge with a little bit of red tint and then go glossy green and red again. They're more divided leaf, more deeply lobed than what we find with the red oaks. So if you're down in Sioux Falls and you're trying to plant an oak, you might consider this one. Again, soil test is still good. If you're on a pH of 8 or 7, 8, I wouldn't even consider it. But slightly alkaline, yeah. Heritage oak, I like. It's an English burr cross. Cold hardy seems to be more alkaline tolerant than a lot of the other oaks. I don't see as much tatter on these trees as I do some others. So if you're looking for a oak that looks a little bit more refined than a bur oak, the heritage oak is a good choice. And that's a picture of one done at the Arboretum in Yankton. Their Arboretum Trail, if you ever have a chance. It's right behind the high school. Nice little walk, but you get to look at all these interesting trees that they've planted, and they try new ones. If one fails, they'll put a different species or cultivar in and see how it goes. So it's worth a stroll once a year at least. And just to show you what we're trying on campus, there's one of our shingle oaks. We're growing those at South Dakota State University. And they seem to be performing well on our alkaline soils. And that interesting leaf compared to a lot of the other oaks. And chinkapin oak, we're growing those as well. So we have them out at McCory as well. So there's a few more oaks that are out there, not as available, but nevertheless should be tried. I think we're trying to push those zones a little bit more, and it's fun to practice, but I wouldn't put them in as a major shade tree yet or a street tree yet. And then Japanese tree lilac or tree lilacs, if you prefer. Beautiful trees. They were in bloom a couple of weeks ago here in Brookings. This one I took in Millbank. Beautiful flowers to them. I'm real showstoppers to it in that they are hardy. And by the way, they're tough. They grow them in Wall, South Dakota, which if you can grow it in Wall, you can grow them anywhere. They are drought and alkaline tolerant. So to me, they're one of my favorite trees in that. Get one of the cultivars. They either will have a fragrance or at least not an odor. If it's grown from seed, some of them can have kind of an off odor, a lot like a late lilac will, almost a privet-like odor is the way they're described, and I think it's correct. But the cultivars, and there's numerous cultivars out there, either there's no fragrance or it's a nice light fragrance that's pleasant. And we have a lot that have these variegated leaves too. This is the golden eclipse. Now, we're growing this in Brookings, but it's for trial. This picture is not from Brookings, but they do grow some nice ones in Sioux Falls, Mitchell, and those areas. This is the sterling silver linden. It's a one of the white lindens, Linden tomentosa, Atilia tomentosa. Uh, the underside of the leaf looks like it's been dipped in powdered sugar to it. It is. It's one of the last ones to bloom, but look at those leaves, the front and back. And there's nice ones, of course, down in Yankton too. But we're starting to grow them on campus. And when I say start, I think they've been in the ground maybe 2 years. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. But I mean, it's going to take decades to know for certain. We always could get one of those exceptionally cold winters, but they're pretty trees. Now, one we do have success with, and this is the harvest gold. It's either considered a Mongolian or a cross between the little leaf and the Mongolian or whatever. But nevertheless, you can certainly tell it apart from the little leaf linden, Tilia cordata. I like the form to it. Certainly is hardy. We get a really nice yellow fall color. When I look out and at the linden block out at McCrory Gardens in the fall, these stand out because they're like a yellow caution light. Flowers, they just finished. They're one of the last ones to bloom too and are kind of fragrant. I don't see as much Japanese beetle damage on the Mongolian here, this Harvest Gold, as I do on the American or certainly the little leaf linden. And by the way, I don't see much damage at all on that sterling silver. I mean, that fuzzy white texture, I think, isn't palatable for them. So that's another plus for that one. But this one, the leaves can sometimes be a little bit lobed. The flowers are equally attractive, but what I love is the fall color. They're just a pretty tree. We don't really think of some bright fall colors on lindens. A little leaf linden sometimes can, but the harvest gold seems to be fairly dependable. I love it, and I love the bark. It certainly is quite different than you'll find on your typical linden trees. Elms. I'm just going to touch upon a couple of them here. I like the Accolade and the Triumph. They're two of our favorites. We've planted quite a few on campus. Zone 4A, and they are resistant to Dutch elm disease. And on the Accolade, I see very little problem with the elm flea weevil. I mean, you can almost, if a cultivar has Siberian elm in its heritage, I'm going to find that flea weevil. If it doesn't, or it's way hidden back, I'm not. I will say these trees require pruning to really do their best. So you got to train them. These are not trees just to plant in the ground and walk away from them, but they are fast growing. You'll get shade fairly quickly. I mean, they are shade trees to it, but I love the leaves. And you'll notice there is no flea weevil damage on this one at all, as compared to the cathedral elm. Cathedral elm is kind of a popular tree, but it just gets so many problems. The leaves just get holes in them all over the place. Now, one I didn't get in here is the Japanese elm. And we plant Discovery elm here. And that's one I plant. It grows. I don't see a lot of damage to it. But we also have one Northern Empress Japanese elm. And that is a drop dead gorgeous tree, particularly in the fall. You don't really think of color on an elm tree, but if you can get that one, Northern Empress Japanese elm, that's another North Dakota State University introduction, which is spectacular. Uh, Try that tree. Like I said, I don't see the same level of flea weevil damage on the Japanese as I do on anything with Siberian elm in its background. And then, of course, the good old American elms. Princeton elm's been around a long time. It's if you go up to the Minnesota State Fair, that's the big elms on them. I want to mention the St. Croix. Mark Stennis was the one. He did a lot of work on Dutch elm disease. Fortunately, passed away a few years ago. But before he passed, he did manage to get this released, and that's a St. Croix elm. And we're planting a few of those. And then North Dakota released the Lewis and Clark elm. So we do have some American elms that can be planted out there. They are tolerant to Dutch elm disease, not with the not resistant, as you'd say. So I wouldn't overplant them. But I still think there's room to have true American elms in our landscape, and those three would be good ones to do: the Princeton, the St. Croix, and the Lewis and Clark. And then when you don't want tree heaven. Fortunately, if you live north of I-90, you don't have it. We don't have any in Brookings. But if you're, I mean, I can find it in Sioux Falls. I can find it across, I can find it in Platte. I can find it in Pierre. It kind of moves up there in the center along the river. I can find it in Kadoka. You can find it in Hot Springs. All right. So the southern part. But it's producing seed right now. And the reason we don't want it, all right, and here's one in Wagner I took. It looks like a big sumac or a funny looking walnut, but here's the reason. I was out in Pennsylvania working on this, just a survey. And yeah, you can find them right now. This is on a tree of heaven. That's a spotted lanternfly nymphs. And they have that tree produce, I mean, the honeydew the insect produces is amazing. Everything gets black and sticky underneath it. They can feed on a lot of different trees and plants. They can feed on vines, grapevines they like, woodbine they like, but it seems to be that they do need to feed at some point in their nymphal stage on tree of heaven, to which is one of their native food sources. They're both from Asia. And that, so I'm hoping we're going to dodge the bullet in the northern half of the state because we can't grow tree of heaven. The insect was first showed up in Pennsylvania and is now as far west as Chicago. And it will get here on eggs. Someone will drive something out here, a trailer of that has an egg mass on it, and we'll have it. And I expect to find it down in the Lewis and Clark area in that because that's going to draw a lot of campers, a lot of boats. And you can walk the river from Dakota Dunes all the way up to Chamberlain and find tree of heaven, naturalized, groves of it. And so we've got the food and we've got the recreational location. And by the way, this is not a threat to our trees. Vineyards will hate it, but otherwise it's not a threat to our trees. But for recreational sites, it makes mayflies seem like nothing. They're so numerous and they create such a mess. Well, just as we're finishing up here, it's not a conifer talk, but I did want to mention a couple here. We're all worried about pine wilt, as we should be. It's in South Dakota. We've not isolated yet in North Dakota, but Joe up there, my counterpart, I'm going to go up there. We're going to sample some trees just to see. And so a reminder, what else do we have out there? Meyer spruce, beautiful tree. That's one on our campus, Zone 3B, and that it has performed extremely well for us, except deer love it. And if you don't provide it with deer protection when it's little, you'll be left with a beach ball. And that, but once it starts growing, it's a great tree. It's softer needles than Colorado spruce. And then we're growing alpine fir as well. Now, I'm going to tell you that's a little more iffy. We've planted a bunch, and you'll just lose some, and it'll just like they'll look good and they're dead. So there must be some issues with winter, despite the fact they're 3B. I would not go out and plant a windbreak of them, particularly northern part of our state. But certainly as an ornamental here or two, where you could afford to lose a tree, that's fine. They grow them in Minnesota as Christmas trees. Yeah, a little bit milder climate there in the southern part of the state, and then certainly east of there. And then Doug fir, which we do grow extremely well. Rocky Mountain seed sources. I can find these in old cemeteries everywhere. They were used quite a bit. We've got huge ones growing up in Aberdeen. We got a big one growing in Lemon, South Dakota. So I wish people would consider this more than just everyone planting blue spruce. And then the one I can't convince you to grow, or at least not the South Dakotans. North Dakotans seem to get it more, but Siberian larch. Nathan Kafer, our agriforester here with the South Dakota Department of Ag Natural Resources, he loves this tree too. But it's just a hard tree to get people to try because why? It looks like a dead spruce because it's a larch. It drops its needles in the fall. But it's reasonably fast growing, reasonably drought tolerant, and you could grow it in the freezer. It is certainly hardy, but it has performed better than the European larch. Certainly performed much better than tamarack, the American larch, and I think it deserves more use. I know it's more popular in North Dakota, being used in some windbreak situations than it is in South Dakota. Well, finally, the last one, and it's a native, is limber pine. We do have that growing out in the Black Hills. That's a tree I think we could use more of too. Now, I'm going to devote more time next time to just conifers because we do need to discuss those. But I did want to point out just these three. But there's a lot more conifer choices out there. People are saying, what other pines can I plant or try? So we'll talk about those. So do like to finish on time here. And so that was kind of some of the best, a rather opinionated best, of course. Everybody has their favorites and that, but I've kind of given you some of the ones that we've fed performed well in Brookings, South Dakota. It's done well on our campus. Ones that I see have performed well or have not performed well as I'm crisscrossing the state almost about once a week during the summertime for actually now for the last 35 years. So thank you for attending. Next time we'll talk about conifers and some shrubs. I think it's worthwhile chatting about those as well. So I will turn it back to Tony.
Thanks, Dr. Ball. One more reminder before we adjourn. If you are an ISA certified arborist or a SAF certified forester seeking your CEUs, your credentials, please add your name, your email address, and your credential number in, excuse me, in the chat box. Not a lot of questions in the chat box. Todd, thank you so much for adding some valuable information there as Dr. Ball was explaining. Um, uh,
And I
some of
like
the
that, Todd, there. Yeah, cool, moist things, but our paper birch, and thank you for the Prairie Dream. We did the Oasis. For the paper birch, they've already got a leg up. They're going to be more tolerant of it, and we don't see the problems. Um, yeah, cool cat surgery. I'm assuming that's a North Dakota introduction. If so, yeah, it's another one. It's if it's hardy to zone 4A, if that's the one you guys released, I've got to try that. Because cat surgery was one of my favorites from before. So I'm assuming since Todd West, who's done a lot of the breeding, followed in the footsteps of a legend, but they have an incredible program up there in North Dakota, and I'll be talking about some of their conifers too. But I really appreciate the effort that Todd has done to continue that and to continue to expand all the trees that we can utilize. But if Todd's on, is Cool Cat the Katsura that you released from North Dakota? Let's see if I can find
Oh,
it.
hey, John.
Hey, there you are.
Yeah, it is. And I need to send you one.
Oh, you know what? I'll take it. And like I said, I love that Northern Empress you sent us a number of years ago.
Oh,
That is,
I made one comment for you, John. One
oh,
thing beautiful with Northern Empress, fall color, but I'm selling it more from the standpoint that it's a moderate growing elm. It only grows about 12 to 18 inches a year, and it's almost completely nearly seedless.
wow. Now, I've only got one, so I've got an N of one. But you're
Yeah,
right. It does not grow as fast as the other trees.
no,
And by the way, when he says that, that's valuable because some of the hybrid elms grow so fast they're hard to prune to keep them
yes.
shaped. And I didn't think of the seedless, but that's great.
Yeah, because we did a comparison several years ago. I had oh, I can't even think of what the elm hybrid is, but we took a 2 foot section and I counted it out and we had like 2,500 seeds. And we had to look for a 2 foot section on the parent tree of Northern Empress to even find a 2 foot section that had seed, and it had 12.
Yeah. For all of you that went through the massive seed crop we had this spring with the elms, you can
Exactly.
understand why Todd's excited about that.
Exactly.
Oh, geez. Well, hey, thanks for being on. Hey, I know I got to turn it back to Tony, but since you're on there, I'm going to take advantage of that. Yellowwood, are you
Yes,
growing that at
Yellowwood.
all on
Thumbs up.
campus? Oh, yeah.
Yes. Campus and our arboretum. Thumbs up.
Yeah, it's a great tree to try. So, all right.
Hey, next time you're up in Fargo, because I'm still hunting it myself, but there is a Osage orange in Fargo somewhere.
Serious?
That's what
Is
I've been told.
Oh, well, I'm going to come up and see Joe. We got to do some hunting. That would be
Let's do some
great.
hunting.
Well, thanks for joining in there.
Thank you for promoting our trees, John. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem. They're great trees. All right, Tony, it's back to you in this last minute.
Sure. Paul has a quick question about slightly off topic, but he saw a recent article about a U of Minnesota research article about a fungus that kills
Oh,
EAB. Any quick
yeah.
words on that?
All right, people. By the way, I've talked with the researchers. They're doing phenomenal work. It's not a criticism of the work, but if you talk with them, they're saying people are making too many jumps. That this is something that's going to be that you can buy, that you'll be able to buy very soon, that you'll be able to apply, and you'll be able to kill EABs. Also, the concern is what else this fungus may kill as well. They were looking at some pollinators. So great work based on very good science, but people have kind of taken it and jumped to, well, it's something that I can apply, or somebody selling something that I can apply. And I say that, Tony, because we do have a couple people that are selling what they say is based on University of Minnesota research. And when I've talked to the University of Minnesota researchers, they said flat out no. But to his point, yes, the University of North Dakota is looking at some fungi that do kill EAB, and that'll just be one more tool in our toolbox. It will not eliminate the insect. We still are going to lose ash, but it's just one more tool to help us. Good question.
Well, it looks like that kind of wraps up our questions. Todd had one quick question about any recommendations for a source of Douglas fir that is the Rocky Mountain variety, and it looks like Eric and Todd both chimed in. I don't know if you have one more recommendation for
Yep,
where to
Big
find
Sioux
them.
Nursery. Big Sioux Nursery, same thing. Now the Big Sioux Nursery does says, well, we're growing Douglas fir, and somebody says, oh no, you need the Rocky Mountain. They are growing the Rocky Mountain. Tower Nursery, Big Sioux Nursery, really watch their seed sources. And so if you're getting Douglas fir from either of them, you are going to get the ones that are adapted here, not the coastal ones.
Well, great. That gets us a couple minutes past the hour. Thank you, everybody, for your time and your attention. One final call for any ISA or SAF certified arborists or foresters for your credentials in the chat box. I'll hang on for another minute or two if you're just finishing typing. Stay tuned. Join us in a month or so here as we go over some more species. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll chat soon.